Once upon the midnight dreary, while I pondered, weak and weary, over many a quaint and curious volume of Inside the Toy Room Halloween edition. How's that for an introduction? Okay, well, welcome once again to a Halloween edition of Inside the Toy Room, and this is going to be our final one for October, and we're going to take a look at something, like I said, it was something very, very niche and very, very small, but I mean, this is very, very small. Yeah, we're going to be taking a look at the Treehouse of Horror Simpsons toys. Now, this is obviously a very niche thing. You might be wondering why I wanted to do it on such a small figure. A lot of this channel is based on things that are very nostalgic to me, that take me back to my childhood and remind me of just how much fun that I used to have collecting superheroes and the toys that came with them. But one of the things that also takes me back to my childhood is every year I watch the very first installment of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, and it was their very first Halloween special. And in my opinion, and this isn't just because it was a big part of my childhood, because all the Treehouse of Horrors was a big part of my childhood. I think the first time I first watched it, I was about 6 years old, so that was a long time after its first television debut, which I believe was in 1991 as part of the second series of The Simpsons. The reason I think it's the best is just because of its tone. It's the only one out of the Treehouse of Horrors, at least in my opinion, that has an actual element of like a thriller to it. All the artwork seems to have a little darker tone. They do such a great job in every single of the shorts of using colours such as greens and purples and oranges, things that you would associate a lot with Halloween. It's a continuing theme throughout the episode. Not to mention the incredible score by Alf Clausen. Now, my personal favourite throughout that episode is the Raven. I could talk on and on about some of the other little shorts and how good I think the writing is, that you can clearly tell in a lot of them stories that it's Bart telling a story just by some of the delivery, some of the characters. But I just think the Raven's spectacular, and what I loved so much now that I look back on it is that was probably my first introduction as a kid to poetry. Now, I'm not really big into poetry, but the Raven I love, and a lot of Edgar Allan Poe's short stories and poems is something that I went on to read as a kid because of this episode and how much of an impact it has on me. And to this day, anytime I read that poem back, all I can hear is James Earl Jones's voice, which was used for that particular short, reading that back to me, and I think it's just incredible. I can't hear it in any other tone. I can't hear "Get thy farmer on thy door" in any other voice than Homer Simpson's. It's such a good little episode, such a good short, and it fits the tone of Halloween so well. It definitely gets me in the mood for Halloween. Like I say, there's that element of terror and just the use of the colours and things like that. But now, into what we're talking about, the toys. Now, obviously, I'm going to get to what resembles a Kinder Surprise toy in a moment, but I'll just give you a brief history. There's been a few toy lines for The Simpsons, believe it or not, which I find quite remarkable because they're not really something that you'd expect kids to be playing with. But of course, a lot of collectors like to have these niche things, and it all began with the World of Springfield, which was the first set of toys that they released. And you got the basic action figures, characters within the Springfield world that we've grown to love, such as Moe, Flanders, Burns, Smithers, etc, etc, Patty, Selma. I could go on forever. I do love The Simpsons, at least those original 10 series, not modern day Simpsons. That's terrible. What they also released was something called, well, it's by a company called Gentle Giant. So, side note, I wanted to purchase this for our living room, for our little Halloween setup that we have every year, and as I mentioned, it just so happened that this episode of The Simpsons introduced me to reading some Edgar Allan Poe, and I actually have a book with all of his poems and short tales on, and that goes on display on Halloween. And I wanted this to go with it to kind of commemorate how I was introduced to that story and how I was introduced to many of those short tales and the work of Edgar Allan Poe. For a cool statue, maybe something the size of these Gentle Giants. I mean, the comedy aspect is the gentle, right? And then you have a giant statue. No. That's what I thought I was paying for. I paid £40 for this. Yeah, I paid 40 quid thinking it was going to be something like this, and then instead I missed the parcel. I had to go to the depot to collect it, and they gave me this little jiffy bag. It's like, what is this? I don't think this is quite what I thought it was. Then I opened it up, You see this little, I mean, and I like the little coffin. I think this is really cool, obviously, the Treehouse of Horror. And this is the first series, and on the side of the packaging, you have the other ones that you can collect in the series. So you have Kang with baby Maggie when in the Treehouse of Horror, where you find out that Maggie is actually a surrogate alien baby. Obviously, the one that's inside of the Raven and Homer. You have Devil Flanders, from one of my favourite ones, and Vampire Mr. Burns, both from the same Treehouse of Horror, in fact. And the star attraction aside, very much like a Kinder Surprise, actually. You had to assemble this. It has little parts that you have to, I'm going to take them apart to be fair. I'll take the Raven off to kind of give you an example. And as you see here, you've got these little things and it all just kind of connects together exactly like a Kinder Surprise. But no matter how miniature it is, I do actually enjoy it. I do, and it actually, if anything, if it had been this big, it probably would have been a bit overbearing where it sits in our living room with the book and probably would have drawn attention away from it. But I do like this. I think it's a cool little collector's piece. In 2006 and 2007, The Simpsons had something called the McFarlane range. Now, these are outstanding. If I'm truthfully honest, this was the one that I was actually trying to get to begin with, because it doesn't just have Homer and Bart as the Raven, it also has Maggie and Lisa as Seraphine and the Angel, and a big picture of Marge in her hair as Lenore, which I just think is brilliant. I was very surprised to see how much these were pulling for. In mint in box, you're looking at around $158 if you could find them. And there's a lot of the beloved characters throughout this and the different famous scenes. And again, going to the Treehouse of Horror, and one that I just mentioned with Devil Flanders, the ironic punishment where Homer has to force feed all the donuts in the world, but it doesn't go crazy. There's one of those in the McFarlane series. Much later in the Simpsons Halloween specials, when Dr. Hibbert has his own island and is mutating everybody together. My favourites, to be fair, from that is the kangaroo of Skinner's mum, and in her pouch is a little Skinner. That's brilliant. That's one of the later episodes that still actually cracks me up. You have so many of your classic Simpsons, from the couch gag to Homer trying to learn as Krusty, riding a little bike before they go through the loop-de-loop for the mafia guy. Man, Simpsons is so good back in the day. Camp Krusty, again, a brilliant episode, but none of these Treehouse of Horror. Let's try and keep this Halloween themed. So this is from the first series of Bust-Ups, which was released in 2005. The following year, in 2006, just as the McFarlane range was coming out, was Series 2. However, none of these featured the Treehouse of Horror specials, but they did have some of the more beloved characters in those memorable scenes. They had Cauldron Wiggum, when he obviously makes the super hot chili for Homer to eat. The Venus de Milo, Homer eating the gummy de Milo, brilliant. There is a lot of those Simpsons action figures out there to collect, and for me it's just not something that I wanted to. But this is something that I'm very happy to say I've got. It will be the only Simpsons toy that I have, unless I get that McFarlane Raven collection, which I probably won't, because I'm quite happy with this, no matter how small it ended up being, because for me it doesn't just capture my favourite short from all of the Halloween specials of The Simpsons, but also captures to me the best Halloween special, because it's the only one with an actual thriller, spooky, Halloweeny tone to it, and that's what I loved so much about it. And yeah, every Halloween, when it starts getting darker nights, gets a little colder outside, I just find myself just in my head going, ooh, once upon a midnight dreary, and it's that finishing line as the organ starts coming in, and my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, so good, so good. I'm definitely gonna watch it after this episode. I love it so much. Whoever was the writing staff back then, which 1990 or 1991 when they would have written that, you guys are the best. Nobody's done Simpsons better since you guys, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, from musical score to animation to script writing, just perfect. And this for me captures that essence of The Simpsons at that time period, when the Halloween specials were proper Halloween specials. Thank you very much for checking out not just this episode of Inside the Toy Room, but hopefully you've been checking out all of our Halloween specials throughout the month of October. We'll be taking a break next week, but then we'll be coming back the week after with a requested video. Obviously, I've moved things around a lot in the toy room since we had this kind of shift around so I could display things better, and we had a request for a video tour of Inside the Toy Room. So I think that's actually a good idea, because it's something I've never done. There is actually a few things that I've not actually spoken about yet, which I'm quite surprised because they had such a major toy line, and we'll probably kind of get into that when we speak about the tour. But yeah, join us next time on Inside the Toy Room. Let's just scratch all of that off. In fact, I'll start that again. Where did I go from? What was the last talking about? No, me. And what I'm saying at all. What the am I on about? Right, okay. It's because I've forgotten where I was last talking about before I got onto I was kind of going into the closer and I've forgotten what I was going to say. So the year's dozens... For sake.